Hi guys, it's Dr. Sarah here from Prince George Veterinary Hospital. So today we're going to do a video on how to bandage your dog's paw. So this can be very helpful, particularly if you're out going for a run or you're camping and you find that we have a little cut on our foot, or we have, cut that nail too short and we need to have a bandage on that paw for a little bit. Now what I'm going to show you though does not take away from proper medical advice or veterinary visits if needed. This is just to try and do a temporary bandage to get you to the help that you need, okay? So this is Ayla. She's gonna help us out today. She seems to be our volunteer in all of our videos, so we'll see how she does. So first we're gonna go over though the materials that I have in my first aid kit. Some materials that would be a good idea, to have a small bag, maybe in your backpack, particularly if you're going to go hiking quite actively. So what we have here is just a layout of what I usually have, okay? One of which is, here's a non-stick bandage. So when you open them, you can see it's shiny. So those aren't going to stick to a wound. So if you have a wound, these are really, really nice. These are also cuttable, so you can cut them aside. So let's say you just want to fold it over the toe, you can just make a little cut, and there you go. Now you have a much more manageable size, particularly if your dog's not very big. It's nice to have those that you can cut. Now these are sterile. These are a little sterile packet. So they're nice and clean, so they should be safe to use. So we have a non-stick packet. Let's say it's a pretty big cut, we got some bleeding going on. Well, we're going to want to have a little bit of extra absorbency and maybe even a little extra pressure depending on where you're putting that. This is just little tiny mini gauze. Any gauze will do, but it can absorb some of that blood so it's not going to seep through the bandage there, okay? And then here we have our next layer. So this is a stretchy kind of gauze cling. So this is going to be usually our first layer that we put in. So we're just going to re-roll that. Okay, this here is something called cast padding. So this is, again, an extra absorbency layer, or if you need a little extra structure. It's just cotton. You can actually even tear it if you need to tear it. We're not going to use that today because we're just going to go for a very light bandage, but that does exist for bandaging. Here we have some vet wrap. So this is really stretchy material. So it stretches and it sticks to itself. So then you don't need any connectors. Now the big thing I will say for this is, remember, it stretches but then it shrinks. So if you're, bandaging a delicate area like a tail or a foot, you have to remember you don't want it to shrink too tight and then cut off blood supply, because you can actually damage tissue with bandages. So you want to make sure it is snug enough to stay, but not so snug it's actually going to cut off circulation, because you can actually cause so much damage, particularly to tails, that the tails can actually die and even come off. So you want to be a bit safe. So there's a few things we'll go over as we bandage to try and make sure we don't place it too tight. Now the final thing is, this is just basic white tape. So it comes off like this and it's tearable. So this is really nice and handy, particularly if you are hiking and you want some tape, because you can make it any size that you like. And then finally, scissors. Always have a little, these are quite large, but you can get smaller bandage scissors. But these are vital to your bandaging kit, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pretend that Ayla has wounded herself. Maybe she stepped on a sharp rock, she cut her toe pad, which she has done. So what we're going to do is place a little safety bandage on her, help it so it doesn't get contaminated, and get her out of the bush or out of the campsite so we can get to proper care. We'll see how willing she is, but let's give it a go. Let's give her a cookie to start first. There you go. You stay here. So she's sitting nicely, so we might as well bandage the back paw. So let's say she's bandaged her toe pad. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the non-stick pad, okay? Okay, girl. Most of the time you're going to have an assistant holding the dog, because if they're sore, you got to be careful, because sometimes they'll nip just out of fear or pain or something like that. This is very weird for her. She doesn't normally get a lot of paw pads put on, so don't be surprised if they, wiggle a little bit, and that's okay. Let's say, hey, you know what? It's actually bleeding pretty good. I'm going to want some gauze on there, so I'm just going to put it on the other side, like that, okay? And we're just going to have that, so we have a little extra absorbency, but that, sterile portion of the bandage that's not going to really stick to the wound and reopen it when we take it off, that we want to always make sure is on contact. So now we have this. Your tail's lovely, but there you go. Okay, so now we have this there. Now the big thing is how do you get a bandage to stay on a foot? You know, this can be actually quite tricky. So what I find is, I'm going to grab my kling here. Stay, hun. Stay, hun. I know it's weird. Stay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use my other hand and I'm going to get it tucked under my fingers. So I'm going to hold that bandage there and I'm going to fold it right over the foot. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist and then I'm going to go right around a couple times. That way you can let go of that. So now I have both hands. So I'm going to go back up a little bit and now I'm going to start my figure eights. So we're on top, we're going to go all the way to the bottom. We're going to loop it around, go in the opposite direction. So we want to catch that toe. We're going to go up there. So now we have a little boot and that's exactly what we want. Go around once, maybe twice, just give it a little bit more security. Now I don't need all of this, so I'm going to, yeah, you can try and kick it off, it's not that helpful. So now I don't need to use the whole roll in this case. Sometimes if you need to do a higher bandage, you will, but I'm just gonna go ahead and cut that. Great scissors. And then I'm just gonna tuck it around. And there we go, okay? So this kind of sticks to itself, but it's not very reliable, all right? Now, with the kling, we're gonna do pretty much the exact same thing. So that's all folded on itself. So you can go start from the bottom or the top. It doesn't really matter. Now, I like to have my main roll on top. So then what we're gonna do here, we're gonna do the same thing. So you're gonna have a line on the bottom. Let's fold that over. And then we're gonna go around. So now it's stuck there. So now we can go ahead, and in this case, I'm just gonna start going to the edge. And then we're gonna go like that, up and over. Now I'm gonna collect the other edge, like that, and go up and over. And then we're gonna just go from here. Now, the big thing about keeping this so it's not super tight is what you're going to do is a lot of times you'll notice I have my fingers on it at all times because I'm going to actually stretch this out when I'm pulling it, but I'm stretching it out against my finger, then I relax it and then you wrap it around, okay? And if you're ever going to pull it, you want to make sure you anchor and then relax. And some people also, they like to stick their fingers in it, so they'll actually go ahead and pull, go around, but they've got fingers in there, and so once it's set, they put their fingers out, and now it's a little bit looser. So I just like the anchor because I feel like I can direct it a little bit better. So my fingers are always on it before I pull, relax, and there we go. So in this case, again, we're not going to go very high. So there's her little tiny paw bandage. I'm going to cut that off. Some of this stuff is tearable, but when you tear it, you really do put a lot of pressure on that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it because I've got some scissors here. There we go. Oftentimes, when you put a foot bandage on, the dog gets up and immediately shakes. And they're going to just keep shaking until that falls out, which is why tape is actually quite important for the top of your bandage. Even temporary tape. So this is, it's sticky, but it's not going to tear out a bunch of her hair when it comes out. It's actually pretty gentle tape. So there's a few ways. So what we're going to do is we're just actually going to tear a small piece off. Like that. And then you want 50% of the tape on your bandage and 50% of your tape off. Roughly, and we're just going to go around and there. So you can see though, this has got a little tab, so you always want to tab it. So either put the tab on before, or when you're ready to end that, you're going to go ahead and just fold some of that over. And that's really helpful for when you remove the bandage, you have somewhere to find, okay? And then you can pull that off. So this is just a really basic paw bandage, but sometimes it can be very helpful when you're trying to get them either out of the bush or, you know, in your car without them having quite a lot of bleeding, and it creates a little bit of that pressure to really help stop some bleeding, and it can make it a little bit more comfortable for them to actually walk on if they do have a wound there, so you're giving them a bit of comfort before you can get to appropriate medical care. So I hope that helps. You know, if you do have any questions, just don't hesitate to reach out to your veterinary team. See you guys.